so the idea of one day tracking down one of these and perhaps even resurrecting it to the point of becoming a cannonball car again is really, really fascinating. So in the decade that I spent researching all the problems and all the issues to explore and understand as I approach the idea of a Cannonball Run, you run into a lot of other interesting facts sort of in the periphery of cannonball history. And one of them was that Brock Yates, the founder of the event in the 70s, the editor of Car and Driver, had sort of formed a lot of relationships in the automotive world. And one of those was with the ownership staff of Brumos Audi in Jacksonville, Florida. And among the promotional things that they did was a special partnership car. Now, various manufacturers and dealers had sort of tried to do this because obviously kind of the folklore and the mystique of the event from the 1970s was pretty significant, but also the idea of the movie coming out in '81 and just this sort of coming into more of a national spotlight made it quite a marketable idea. And so there were legends of there being a Cannonball 911, and I've never come up with one of those. I'd love to. If you have one, call me. But I did find out that Brumos Audi and Brock Yates had partnered to do a dealer-installed package that they called the Audi 4000S Quattro Brock Yates Cannonball Edition. And there were 12 of them built in 1985. And they were all white. They had a special red, white, and blue stripe on them and a special set of Gotti wheels and a Nardi steering wheel and special Recaro seats with cannonball patches, and Brock Yates had hand signed the rear trunk lids on every car. They had special stickers, special badges, and they were numbered 001 to 012 for 12. And I had looked far and wide because, I mean, who else is going to appreciate such an automobile as much as I might, and just couldn't find one. And you never saw them listed. If you Google it, they weren't going to find much. But one day I happened to across a forum posting from a few years prior. This was probably, I was probably looking after the record in 2014, and sometime in 2012, these two gentlemen had been talking on Audi World about each owning these Brock Yates Quattros. And one said, yeah, I've had it forever. I still daily drive it. Had to do some engine stuff a few thousand miles ago, but it's an awesome car. And the other one said, yeah, I've had one for forever. But I've had it in the garage since the early 90s, and it hadn't really run. And I joined the forum, make enough posts that I can have private messaging capabilities, and I start blasting them, hey, you know, do you still have this car? Can you tell me anything else about it? Do you know where any of the others are? And do you want to sell it? And so I never get a response, and probably a year passes, and we've done 2904, where it's this kind of cheap car, Cannonball, 24 hours of lemons amalgamation. And so the idea of one day tracking down one of these and perhaps even resurrecting it to the point of becoming a cannonball car again is really, really fascinating. So I continue looking around, and I actually find out that I've got a friend in common with one of the people that was in that conversation on Facebook. And so I message him and say, hey, I've messaged this guy on Facebook, but you're the only friend we have in common, and I'm assuming it's going into some weird spam folder and he's not noticing it. Well, hopefully. And he's not just ignoring me. So they said, I'll reach out to him, see what they say. So that person sends along my phone number, and this person from Seattle calls me. And as it turned out, he went to Georgia Tech, where I went to school, and actually where my parents went to school, and he was there in some of the same classes as my mother back in the early 80s. And so he had bought this car brand new soon after that, and had continued to daily drive it to this day in Seattle. And it had about 275,000 miles or so, he thought. The odometer had stopped long ago. But he loved the car, had no interest whatsoever in selling it, but the only thing he'd ever heard was that this other person that was on Audi World had the other car. So I'm like, well, do you have any other way to contact him? No, and we just kind of left it there. Out of the blue, probably 30 days later, I get an email from the previous now owner of this car's wife's email account. Says, hi, I don't really check this forum anymore, but I saw that you were interested in the car. You know, I keep telling myself I'm going to go through it and fix it all up and get it back on the road, but if I'm honest with myself, I don't know that that's ever going to happen. And sort of in this window, unfortunately, Mr. Yates had passed away to Alzheimer's. And so whatever appreciation the car now had was relatively new, because if we're honest, you know, through the 90s and early 2000s, Audi 4000S Quattro was not viewed as the most desirable form of transportation, and the novelty of being a Brock Yates or Cannonball Edition was certainly waning. But it was sort of back into the forefront, and I don't know what had made him contact me, but he said, as I think about it, I'm probably not going to fix the car up, but I want to make sure that it goes to someone who will appreciate it. So I said, well, I think you found him, and I sent him articles from CNN and Jalopnik and everything that had covered our record in 2013, and I said, I can assure you I'll appreciate it as much as anybody on earth would. So he emails me back and says, all right, well, let's talk about how this might work. He said, I really don't know what it's worth. I said, good, I don't either. But what I would like to do is use it for this upcoming 2904 race that we're going to do again. And this limits my budget, and I'm not trying to say that the car's worth the $1,500 that I can generally spend. That's what I'd spent on the salvage title 12-owner 2-accident S55 that I'd run in 2015. And I want it. I don't know what to pay you for it, but I can pay you that in this circumstance, and I can also justify that fundamentally the car is worthless. There's no possible way that I invest the money it will take to make it run and ever get anything back out of it, so that anywhere near it. So why don't we just say this? I'll pay you $1,500, and if you ever want it back for whatever I've invested in it, you're more than welcome to it. He said, that sounds fair. You just have to let me come down and drive it when you get it running. And to this day, it still sits in my warehouse. We haven't gotten around to fixing it yet, but the moment that it's running, I'll place a call to him.